What is going on? Welcome into another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Kobe Pierce. Beside me, Dan Kiley. Missing Harrison Reno. He should be here joining us shortly. Tonight, we're just kind of catching up on what's going on with the Texas game and what can we expect in college football and the rankings this week. Dan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it is a good Sunday. Listen, anytime you win is a good day, but then anytime you can beat a team the caliber of Texas is even better. First time, if I'm not mistaken, first time ever Texas between the hedges to add a little spice to it in a night game at University of Georgia. And we know those are special; they're rare. We don't get a ton of them. Uh, Listen, I wasn't there in person, but I can tell you it looked magical on television. I mean, with the wristbands, I think was an amazing touch. With the light shows going on, the music, everything, um, the amount of celebrities on the field, it just looked magical. I know you were there. You can give us a first person take of what it was like to be in that atmosphere. I think that's a great jumping on point. I know that you had a discussion you want to talk about, and we will definitely talk about that. But just as kind of a welcome to the show, tell me about that environment in person.
Yeah, and like you're saying, we can the hot topic thing we can say for Harrison not to have to rehash if he comes at a reasonable hour, but the environment's amazing. I think that is huge shout out to the AD, huge shout out to Kirby and just like you know Josh Brooks and how he's thought about the stadium and the thought and the you know foresight of having it be just such a fun and unique fan experience for us. And because that's what it's all about, right? Like win the football games, all the things, but at the end of the day, like you want the fan experience to be positive, and there have been some changes, whether it's the red lights in 2019, whether now it's the light up wristbands on big time games. The fireworks, are still something I'm very much getting used to, like after touchdowns and at the start of the fourth quarter and things like that. Um, that are just a really cool and unique experience, especially somebody that's gone to games since they were a little kid, the last 20, 25 years of going to Georgia games. And where it's just continually adding, maybe not like full new traditions, but just fun new game day experiences to kind of keeps things, like yeah, you maybe have been to a Georgia night game in your life, but you haven't been to one recently. Like they're so different than they were. Um, it was amazing. I mean, stadium was packed early. I'm feeling a little bit in the voice tonight, and if you can't hear it, it's hurting. A little cold November night, screaming. We sat next to a couple of Texas fans, so it just made it a little bit better. But uh, you just can't beat it. I think it's so. I hate it that people are like, "Oh, Sanford Stadium, like it's not hard to play in. Like it's not loud. It's not one of the top five like hardest stadiums to play in." I just think it's total BS these days. I think people are thinking back to like, the mid 2000s, like people and like respect obviously to Alabama for ending that streak that was going on, but since 2017, only two teams have come in and left victorious. That's South Carolina in a double overtime game in Alabama this year. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Not an easy place to play. You
Eh,
know what I mean? You're 100% right as far as the change that they have brought in, because I remember going back to games in the early 2000s. Well, I mean, I started going to games in the 80s, but I mean, that's not what we're talking about. But yeah, early 2000s. I mean, obviously, there's always exceptions to everything, right? There was an LSU game that I was on the field for in the early 2000s that was absolutely bonkers. I think Fred Gibson caught a couple touchdowns that day. But that game was extremely loud. But for the most part, they would get loud at moments, but it wasn't sustained. And I mean, just to illustrate how loud it was last night, you couldn't hardly hear Kirk Herbstreit's mic whenever he would talk. And that's loud. When you can't hear the broadcasters on the television, that's loud. Now, maybe you could say it's a bad job by ESPN, ABC not adjusting the crowd volume, Mike, and adjusting your commentators. But yeah, it was loud. And I believe there was 4 false starts on the night. And what is Kirby's benchmark? Doesn't he always say 5? He wants 5, but still, you got 4.
Yeah, I mean, just phenomenal, and that's one thing, I've seen people on Twitter and different places talking about, like, it was a pretty heavy penalized night for Texas, right? Like, I think they had 9 and we had 1 for 15 yards, 1 PI penalty that ended up giving them, that first and goal before they scored the touchdown. Uh, you impacted them, whether they will admit it or not, because that is my favorite, like, post-game presser. Like, all of them are, Sark, the safety Taft, all of them like, oh, it's not a Georgia thing. It's an us thing. Like, we didn't get outplayed tonight. We didn't get out physical tonight. It's not big bad Georgia. Like, it's an us thing. We didn't execute the way we needed to. It's just like, at some point, like, I get it. You're trying to save some face and a couple of things like that, but fellas, like, the only offensive touchdown you scored all night, you did on a short field after an interception. Like, they're not saying like it's the boogeyman, but it definitely wasn't no walk through the park in Athens last night for them. And sometimes I think it's okay to admit that, right? Like, we came in and we got outplayed, we got outcoached. Nothing wrong with that. I think I tell you, the Alabama game, we got outplayed, we got outcoached. It is what it is sometimes. It's the nature of the beast. So, um, as
Yeah,
far as
my
the false
comment
starts, they just like really a nice way to start things on the negative for people.
my only comment to any Texas fan that would be complaining about the penalties. Now, I understand 9-1 is pretty lopsided, right? But go to any one of those 9 penalties against Texas and point out one that was questionable. Like, I felt like every penalty that was called was pretty obvious. Now, if you want to talk about missed calls, like things that were not called, all right, maybe we can have a discussion. But I think Georgia would have a conversation about that too, because there's a couple things that probably didn't go our way that possibly could have. But I thought the officiating all night was pretty good. In every, whether it was against us or against them, I felt like every penalty that was called was pretty obvious. I mean, the pass interference that they called against us that set up their touchdown. If you're a Georgia fan and you're arguing against that, I mean, come on, like, what are we talking about? Like, that was a penalty all night long. But that would be my only rebuttal to the Texas fans crying about the penalties. My other comment would be like, just be better. Like, just be a more disciplined football team. I mean, listen, there have been days where Georgia just got hammered by the officials, right? And I think most of them are probably correct. I mean, obviously there's always going to be 1 or 2 questionable ones, but I didn't see any last night. But I think Georgia, we kind of talked a little bit last week, and before we kind of get into the details of this game, we talked about the Mississippi State game being probably the most complete game that they've played. And I mean, this Texas game was pretty complete. Now, Kirby always talks about trying to win the middle 8, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't win the middle 30. I mean, if we're being honest, we didn't win the middle 30. But you have to give Texas a little bit of credit because they are a quality football team. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated with fans, is that you're not going to just go out and beat the hell out of every team that you play, especially really, really good football teams. There's going to be adjustments made to the game. There's going to be ebbs and flows, and there's going to be times in the game where the other team gets the better of you. And Texas absolutely did get the better of us for parts of the second quarter, but then large parts of the third quarter where they were, I wouldn't say dominant, but they were maybe dominating the time of possession and dominating portions of the game. But you have to give Georgia credit because they answered the bell and then they turned it on. But I didn't know if you wanted to get into your little hot topic that you had.
Yeah, I'll probably throw out one more thing. We'll
Okay.
kind of wrap it up about, maybe not wrap it up about Texas, but one more like little testimony, right? Like, if you're a Texas fan and you're kind of heated about the way the game went, I guess I would ask you, as the season has gone, at what point in what game did you think, like, man, this team right here, This team is a dominant force to be reckoned with, and they should be pile driving every team they play. They should be beating teams by 10. They're not. Texas is a scrappy team. They're in dog fights every game, especially on the road. We talked about it on Wednesday. They struggle on the road. They lost to Ohio State on the road, which, don't get me wrong, Ohio State's number one team in the country right now, but on the road, so loss. You lost to Florida on the road, who is a scrappy team. They gave Ole Miss fits. They gave us some fits. They've given team fits all year. You play an overtime game with Kentucky that you don't even score 3 touchdowns in. You play an overtime game at Mississippi State. You have a horrible fourth quarter against Vanderbilt in which they almost complete a massive comeback. And then you score 10 points in Athens. Like, none of that screams like that this should have been just this massive surprise. You basically were assuming that Sark could get this team up a level for this game and play to maybe a higher level than you've played all year. And like we talk about on this podcast, Harrison and you like to joke, like, at what point do we believe what we see? You know what I'm saying? Like, at what point is what we see what it is? Like, it no longer is it the hypothetical of, well, maybe this team can run the ball, or maybe this team can be more effective in run defense. At this point in the year, you are what you are. So I think that's the biggest thing about this game is, that they really were a game away against Florida from being a one-loss team coming in. But, I mean, you just are what you are at this point, and you're a good team. You're maybe a fringe playoff team if you're Texas, if some things fall your way. But I think you're going to need a lot of help from this point forward. And I think the biggest thing now is you go out and you rinse the ugly taste out of your mouth against Arkansas this upcoming week, and you see where the chips fall against Texas A&M in 2 weeks, and that's your Super Bowl, right? Like, can you knock off what we maybe will debate is the number 3 team in the country, the Texas A&M Aggies?
Yeah, and if you're tuning into this podcast and you're like, why are you guys not talking about the game yet? It's because we're really kind of waiting for Harrison before we start diving into the nitty gritty of the game. We're kind of just giving you the 90,000 foot view of it. So yes, we are going to talk about the game. I promise we will talk about this game in some intimate details of it. But let's get to your little topic that you wanted to talk about. To hell with Harrison, he can just catch in when he gets here because we don't want to make these people wait too long before we start talking about the game. You brought up an interesting point today. We kind of tossed around some hot topic ideas of what we want to talk about, and Kobe had a good one. And if I say this wrong, feel free to correct me. But it's basically, at what point, or is it possible for this committee to look at a one-loss team versus a zero-loss team and say, well, that one-loss team is actually better, so we're going to rank them ahead even though they already haven't lost? Or do you have to rank your teams in order of losses? Your top 3 teams are undefeated, so they have to stay that way. I think it's a great conversation point. We hear what the committee talks about, but they talk they talk out of both sides of their mouth all the time, where they say this thing, but then they do something else. So, Kobe, it's your topic. I'll let you kind of take it off on like what really spawned this in your mind, and I think we're going to be in agreement. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think really watching this past 2 Tuesdays of rankings and kind of talking about the committee and what their different metrics are they're looking at to rank teams. I think that me and you both thought that, and a lot of people thought after the first initial ranking, there was a legitimate argument that Texas A&M at that point had played one of the more complete schedules in the country at that point. There's a chance that they could be maybe 2, maybe even squeak a 1 due to the metrics of it all. I think they really leaned on the eye test heavy and said, well, Ohio State eye test is a little bit better. Indiana's eye test is a little bit better. Maybe not quite Texas A&M's eye test and the way teams are trending. Last weekend we see Indiana play a less than ideal game against Penn State, in which it comes down to the last play of the game to win. And at that point, I kind of thought like, hey, Texas A&M kind of has been handling business. They're kind of looking better in the metrics. Here would be a perfect opportunity. You've been using the eye test to rank teams. It'd be a perfect opportunity to flip flop those two teams this upcoming week. Texas A&M at 2, Indiana at 3. Kind of let things continue to shake out how they are. I think my big thing this week is looking at the way Texas A&M played against the team that they played, and the first half they had, and then when you look back at the entire schedule and how it is shaken out as far as the record has gone, they've played like 6 of the worst 7 teams in the SEC in their undefeated season, while Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, like Ole Miss, are having to play that upper echelon of SEC teams, right? I mean, your number 5 team in the country just played your number 10 team in the country and beat them 35-10, while your number 3 team won by 1 point in an unranked match at home. Like, with Alabama losing, I just think there is a argument to be had that you could see and argue that Georgia currently is trending as the better team than Texas A&M. Now, I think they're going to stick to their guns. I mean, I think they're going to leave the undefeated teams where they are, but I just think that as far as continuity goes, like if you're ranking them based on who is the best, it also has to take into who is playing the best right now. And I think that's where I think I get a little aggravated with the rankings part of it is they just seem to place someone somewhere and say you can't move until you lose. I don't care how ugly you win, as long as you win, you get a ride.
And I think you're 100% right on that. And if you're not going to penalize Penn State, or if you're not going to penalize Indiana last week, then you can't penalize Texas A&M this week. But I think to your point, if you were to look at the schedule that Georgia's played, if you look at the schedule Alabama's played, if you look at the schedule Ole Miss has played, any one of those teams, they have played a much tougher schedule than Indiana, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. So if you're going to go based on that, like who's the better team right now, I think it would be very easy to take a team like Georgia and move them up to 2. Where I stand on Ohio State. They literally play nobody. It's the worst schedule I've ever seen, and they're going to cakewalk through the entire thing. And they're unless they lose to Michigan, but it's the easiest schedule ever. So, but my stance on Ohio State is they're the defending champ, and until they lose, they should stay number 1, unless they just look like dog water. But they haven't looked bad all year long. So I don't think you could touch Ohio State at 1. Indiana, I absolutely think you could touch them. Their only real win all season long was Oregon. Now, granted, it was on the road in Eugene, which is an extremely tough place to play. I give them all the credit in the world for that. But they have not looked amazing in the other games that they've played. Yes, they have in some, but not all of them. And in fairness, Georgia hasn't looked amazing in all of their games either. But if you listen to like what the pundits were talking about last night, and it's been pretty much across the board where they're talking about a lot of these teams kind of started out hot and they're kind of tapering off a little bit, and then you have other teams who started off looking good and they're kind of flatlining and just kind of the status quo at that point. I think Georgia has just been building this entire season, and I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff at Georgia for that, where this team is playing at a better level. I mean, if you were asking me, and I understand that I'm a homer or whatever else, but I think a real honest argument could be made to have Georgia at number 2 in this poll. Now, we know that's not going to happen. They're going to be at 4. But I think if you were to look at the schedules, the wins, and how the teams are playing at this moment, and I think that has to be considered, how are you playing right now? I think Georgia's the second best team in the country at the moment. That doesn't mean that we would beat every other team in the country. I'm just saying at this moment, we are playing better than everybody else outside of Ohio State. Harrison, what do you got on this topic? What do you think about the rankings? How should they be ranked? You're on mute.
I
There you
mean,
go.
I don't know if you can put Georgia at 2 just because they have a loss. So, in today's world of college football, unfortunately.
Why
Wins and
though?
losses take precedent.
It's the 12 best
But
teams. It's 12. I mean,
I
that's
understand.
the whole thing about the committee, right? It's no longer a computer algorithm that we just dump it out of. Like, there is the human aspect of who is the 12 best teams. Like, if you had to pick somebody you didn't want to play tomorrow, I'm not sure it's not Ohio State and then Georgia.
I agree.
That,
Just the way
then
things
right
work.
there.
That's what we're
I mean,
talking about.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that based on that, like, it's no different than losses at the beginning of the year don't matter as much as losses at the end of the year. They're still losses. You're still a
I
two-loss
understand.
team, but, you know.
And even after yesterday, I I still have a ton of respect for what A&M's done this year. They did not play well at all yesterday in the first half, but man, even with them coming back in the second half, it makes it even more impressive. I know there's a lot to be said about Shea Beamer, South Carolina, but that's a team that I think Georgia could probably look at and be like, man, that's not exactly a nice matchup in terms of having to play a mobile quarterback with some speedsters on the outside, and then the defense. I think they're tied for second in sacks this year. So I have A&M above Indiana, just my opinion. Now that obviously won't happen. I wouldn't be surprised if A&M drops after this weekend. But I mean, it's gotten a lot more interesting in the playoffs and
So
the playoff
tell me,
rankings this
so
week.
tell me that then. If you don't think the Dogs could have the ability to move up to 2, you think they could move up to 3 in front of A&M if they drop?
Because
I
then
don't
that
think the
ruins your
playoff.
argument for 2.
I don't think. Look, what I think's going to happen is different from what I
Yeah, I just care
think
about
it
what you
should
think is
be.
going to happen.
What I think is going to happen, it's going to be Indiana number 2, Texas A&M maybe a 3. I don't know.
Okay.
They have not moved a no-loss team in the Power 5 below a one-loss team. I don't in recollection. I don't remember it happening. I don't expect them to change it now.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think the biggest thing that holds them up is the Pandora's box effect of it all. The moment you move a Georgia above a Texas A&M in a case like this, and all of a sudden you look and the way things are kind of trending, it should be Texas A&M versus Alabama in the SEC championship game. The moment you have an SEC team ranked higher than the two teams playing in a conference championship game, I think that's where it starts to get messy, right? They try to fix those mistakes. They try to, as well as they possibly can, they try to make it to where the teams that are going to play for the conference are ranked higher than anybody else that's not going to play for the conference, no matter what. And I think that'll again be what you see on, all of a sudden, if Georgia's at 3 and they don't have to play in the SEC championship game, I mean, what's going to keep them from being one of the teams that receive the bye?
yeah, I will say this. I hate the auto bids. I get it. Yeah, we want to prioritize conference championships because we have to do everything we need to make those relevant still. But I hate the fact that we're coming into these rankings and we're having to say, hey, we have to rank the 5 highest conference champions before we even talk about a one-loss Georgia or a one-loss Ole Miss or a one-loss Oregon. It's stupid. It's really, really stupid because you can't tell me the winner of the ACC is potentially better than the third place SEC team or the third place Big Ten team. It's really stupid. Why don't we just rank them 1 through 12 the normal way? Still incentivize conference championships. I don't know how you do that. Maybe you have to say, hey, if you win a conference championship, you're guaranteed a spot, or in the Power 4, you're guaranteed a spot, but you're not guaranteed a top 4 spot. But again, if they do that, then there's going to be even more questions about why you're playing conference championships. I
I
don't
thought the
understand
auto
it.
bids were gone.
They're not.
The auto bids for the seeding is gone.
Right. So you could still have your
but
conference championship team could be ranked 12th.
correct.
You can,
But it
your
still
top 4 are
guarantees
guaranteed.
5. The top 5 conference champions are still guaranteed. So like the ACC is guaranteed a spot, the Group of 5 is guaranteed a spot, so on and so forth.
Question: how many of these pollsters actually watch football, let alone know if they can?
That's a great question.
For the
AP
AP
poll,
poll, questionable. At least I'll say CFP. A lot of
there's
those people
not
have
a
deep
damn
ties.
AP. AP poll member in the world that has watched every top 25 team in a single weekend. Not a damn chance. They maybe
Rookies.
get to watch 4 games.
Rookies.
And then they probably don't even try and watch the condensed version of these games. They don't even watch the highlights.
They watch
They
the
don't.
ESPN highlights. That's what they watch.
Maybe. But, I mean, if you go count up the runtime on how long it would take for you to watch every single ESPN highlights of every single top 25 team, you're
It's an
talking,
hour. Dude,
some of
seriously,
these.
I just watched one of their TV shows. They show you all the highlights of the top 25 games. Any one of the
Maybe.
Sports Center highlight shows.
I'm talking about the YouTube. If you go try to watch the YouTube highlights, which are like some of these games are 17 minutes long, hell no. That's gonna take all day.
I'm talking about they watch
Put-
ESPN is what I'm talking about.
Play it on
that's
2.5
like the
times
highlights. They do
speed,
it-
baby.
Yeah. That's not even highlights in an hour. That's hey, I'm gonna show you 2 plays for each game.
Yeah,
But,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Let's talk about the game. We've been waiting for you to get here to talk about the game.
y'all didn't have to wait on me. Y'all been doing this few weeks now.
We gave our general observations about the game. We talked a little bit about Texas fans bitching about penalties. But let's talk about the game from kickoff to final whistle. Let's talk about the game.
Can we start with the penalty conversation? Because I have something I would like to say on this. And
I'd
I think
love to hear it.
I texted y'all this. I get it. Georgia's had some calls go their way this year. You had the fumble. Although, look, I hate the bitching about these reviews and shit. We're all clear here. You need indisputable evidence, video evidence, to overturn a call. On some of these reviews, there has not been indisputable video evidence to overturn a call. So the call on the field, whether it's right or not, is the call they have to stand with. That's why the rule's in place. Bitch about the rule. Don't bitch about it being rigged. On this note, why are Texas fans surprised that they had 9 penalties, that they had more penalties than Georgia? You came into the game ranked 130th in penalties per game. This is not no Georgia deep state. This is you haven't been a disciplined football team. You've been a penalty football team all year long. And you go on the road into a tough environment and you have penalties. I'll be damned. Why are you shocked?
You really hated you missed our opening thing because me and Dan were talking about what you always say. At this point in the season, you are what you are. If you're a highly penalized football team, you're not just going to show up on any given Saturday and have 2 penalties and a clean game. It's going to be loud. I mean, and some of those, I get it. I think the biggest thing
is
probably,
it the 9-to-1 ratio? Is that what it is?
I think that's what it is. I feel like it's the 9-to-1 ratio because to me, you can't argue the 4 pre-snap penalties. You can't argue that hold on oh God, who'd he hold? I can't remember. One of the defensive linemen, but I mean it was blatant. I mean, he's extended from the body. He's got a handful of jersey. I mean, it's just like that's day one stuff.
He's holding Griffin.
Yeah, Elijah Griffin. So I get it, but I mean our one penalty also cost us 7 points. So
but it was
blatant. It was blatant. Yeah. I mean, you have to throw that flag, 100%. I'm not saying it was wrong, but
and did Georgia even get points off the holding on Anthony Hill? I don't think they did. I don't even think Georgia scored that drive, did they?
I'm not.
I don't know. To be fair, I also know at least one time that I remember because I said something to Katie about it, but maybe twice that Sark declined a penalty against Georgia to keep the statistics in the game. Like there was a pass completed. And instead of taking the penalty, he was like, I'd rather have the completion in the yards.
Which would have been a pass interference.
Yes. I know at least one time that happened, if not a second time late in the game.
It was on their sidelines. Their tight end caught the ball, and they were going to call either defensive holding or pass interference on the defense, and he chose to take the reception because it was a first down.
I mean, look, here's my whole thing. Officials miss calls, and there were missed calls. I'm sure I've seen the screenshots. Oh, Georgia didn't get called this hold. Georgia didn't call that hold. It wasn't going to matter. It didn't affect the outcome of the game. Auburn can feel justifiably screwed in their loss to OU. There was nothing in this Georgia game that was egregious in terms of a missed call that changed the game.
No, and every penalty that was called was obvious.
Yeah. So I get it. There is this notion that there's this Georgia refereeing deep state, but I promise you, Texas fans, If you scroll back in this podcast history, I'm sure there's some point in one of these episodes that one of us is saying, "Oh man, Alabama got a shit ton of the calls and Georgia didn't." So
Listen, and if you scroll back, you'll hear me say, I will never apologize for being on the good side of a poorly officiated game because I've been
Yeah.
on plenty of bad sides
Tyler
of bad
Simmons is
officiating
outside
games.
still.
So I gotta
and Georgia has never ranked 130th in penalties in a season under Kirby Smart. Has not happened. So
Discipline.
I wouldn't say it's a Georgia deep state at this point. I'd say it's just a disciplined football team. All right.
Let's
Last
talk
year was
about the
probably one
game.
of the most. Yeah. Anyways, I wanted to touch on that note because I've seen a lot of it. I've seen some headlines about
Yeah, we did like
controversial
10 minutes on
officiating.
that.
So, anyways, I understand.
All right, kickoff of the game. They got an electric returner. We did a good job of keeping it out of his hands. We're able to hold the script. What do we always talk about, right? Like, these coaches, their best shot out of the cannon is that script. And Sark is a really good play caller. Whether he was last night or not is debatable, and you can have that conversation on your own. From just a higher level, Sark is a good play caller. To be able to hold that script to 3 points, especially the beginning of that script, they were moving the ball pretty well. They moved it down the field relatively easy. They were getting nice little chunk plays. They had guys that were open. Now, granted, our defense did a good job of closing the space and making the tackles, but to hold that script to 3 points, I thought was a really big thing early in the football game. What did you guys think about the script defensively?
Yeah, I thought that it's as good a job as we've probably done in kind of squeezing near the red area. That used to be the MO, right? Like, and that's part of the thing that I think a lot of Georgia fans early in the year were confused and concerned about. Like, this defense has always been a 20 to 20, a 25 to 25 defense where you're going to play, kind of a softer coverage. You're not going to be overly like crazy aggressive. You're going to play a bend, don't break defense. But once you get inside the 25, 30 red area, it compresses and we really squeeze and we're really aggressive and we take some chances. And it typically either causes turnovers, forces field goals, something to make them uncomfortable. And I thought that's one big thing last night on that first drive. Like, yeah, you're right. They kind of chopped it down the field. I think they had like a 13-play drive going, and then it was just like, well, you gotta fight me in a phone booth, and that's not where you want to be. And that's the thing I think that makes you happy as a Georgia fan of like you're back to that mentality of if you don't have the whole field to work with anymore, I got you.
Here's the difference between these two offenses is Georgia can be efficient. Texas had to get the ball out quick because it doesn't trust its protection, had to play a little bit more horizontal, play in the screen game, which we talked about on Wednesday. That's a recipe for success for Georgia defense. Come down and tackle in space, not going to give up explosives on these quick and easy completions. That's been the recipe for success since Kobe's been there and even before Kobe got there. And it still is today. But the difference between these is Georgia is exceptional at avoiding negative plays. And it's because 14, it's because the offensive line doesn't really put them in bad situations often. Yes, there's the occasional holding penalty here and there. Yes, there's the occasional OPI or something. But they avoid negative plays and they stay on schedule. That's the one thing Texas has not been able to do this year, as evidenced by their third down conversion rate. I think they have like an average third down of like 39 this year, and they're converting at a 40% clip. Texas wanted to play these long, methodical drives because their best ways to create explosives were getting the ball out quickly to his playmakers and letting them run and be an athlete. What does Georgia do on defense? They have a crap ton of athletes, and they go run and tackle in space.
If both of
Georgia,
you
on the
had to
other hand,
guess, if both of you had to guess right now, and Harrison, you may know, speaking of third down efficiency, what was Texas's third down efficiency for the game?
I remember this because Kirby said it post game, but I'll let Dan guess before I say it.
If you just had to like take a stab in the dark, Dan.
They were like 2 for 12 or something like that because Kirby.
Ooh,
I mean, Dan throwing darts. 2
damn,
for 12
dart.
is the answer we're looking for.
Yeah.
Damn it, boy. was
Certified
impressive.
ball knower. Isn't that what they say?
He may not remember jersey numbers or a person's name, but he'll remember third down efficiency.
Listen, if they're in the game, I freaking know who they are for the most part. I mean, I'm
You need to
yelling
see the
out
body
guys'
type.
names all night. Offensively, I know almost every damn guy's number. Defensively, maybe not. I'm an offensive guy. Cut me some freaking slack. Which leads me to Georgia's first offensive drive. Listen, Bobo for years got so much shit, just so much shit, and some of it was deserved,
Tell
and
me about it, Dan.
some of it was not. There were days that I wanted to kill Bobo myself. I wanted to choke him with two hands. But here recently, I think he's really dialed in with what this quarterback is able to do, with what these playmakers on the edge are able to do. And I think, in fairness to Bobo, this is probably the best group of playmakers that he's had while he's been back in charge of calling the offense. I think Monken was blessed with some really good guys. Now, don't get me wrong. Monken's my guy. I would go back to him in a heartbeat. But that's not a negative reflection on what Bobo's been doing. And I thought that first drive was really nice. I mean, there was some good balance. And then also give credit to Drew Bobo for being able to snap really consistently with two fingers and a thumb. That's if you've ever snapped a football before. I mean, when I was little, I was a center, so that doesn't necessarily count. But Kobe has snapped at a higher level. To snap with two fingers is not as easy as it sounds. And he did a great job. I don't recall or remember a bad snap. I mean, maybe Gunnar had to move a little bit, but they were pretty much where they needed to be. And the tempo was good too.
The only negative on Bobo that night was the first play of the game. I think he snapped it prematurely, or at least Gunnar was not ready for it.
Sure.
That was the only negative that I saw.
Yeah, like you're saying, I thought that even if there was an off snap, I mean, nothing that got you out of rhythm. There wasn't
Right.
like a snap too early and it messed up a mesh point or anything like that. I think that games like last night are the prime example of why some retention of those bubble breakout guys and then proper allocation of funds in the portal are so important. You know, I look at a Zach Branch who writing on the wall out of high school, 5-star wide receiver, goes to USC, goes to the guru of, quarterbacks and making wide receivers look good, and just it never clicks, right? Like he has a pretty good freshman year, but just never clicks. He's a gadget guy for them. He's a great returner. He's all those things, but he's just not the receiver we thought he is. Bring him into Georgia, and he is your number one option. And then you go out and you convince Noah Brown that this is Noah Thomas. This is the place to be. Yeah, I got it. Noah Thomas, this is the place to be. Come on over from Texas A&M. And he had a quiet first 6 games of the year, right? Like we're all looking around going, where is this guy? He hadn't called a lot of passes. He hadn't been targeted a lot of times. He doesn't have any touchdowns. Colby Young gets injured, and it's like next man up mentality. And we're throwing him the ball, and he is making the most of it. I mean, he scores both of the first touchdowns of this game. I just think if you're looking in the 3 years talking about Mike Bobo, he looked really good in 2023 with weapons on the perimeter, on the outside, right? We ran the ball well. We threw the ball well. We were 12-0 in the regular season. Last year, I just really think it's showing that the weapons we had around, the supporting cast, they just weren't there, whether it be injury, guys not panning out the way you wanted them to, a couple of key drops here and there. And now back to this year, like the play calls look good because the players are executing the play calls the way they need to be executed. I don't think it's always a question of, was it the right time for that play call? Maybe here and there you could say that, but I mean that's any offensive coordinator you've ever watched in your entire life. But I think what
Well,
he's
in Georgia's
asking,
first touchdown, it was a touchdown before the ball was even snapped. Dylan Bell on the jet motion, cornerback goes to rotate as if he's going to go play post safety. That space just out leveraged immediately because Noah's running the corner. And that's part of the coordinator, obviously, calling that, setting that up, and having the motion. Obviously, he might not have been the one to design the play, but in that moment, he called it. And Kirby talked about it post game. Those type of plays, I think Gunnar had 2 touchdowns, maybe later in the game, Kobe, where he's rolling out, moving launch point, and defenders see him running. Oh, that's a threat to run. Like, we're not going to let him run it in. Boom, you got a tight end wide open in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, I think that you're all nailing it right now, and Gunnar is able to do things that Beck wasn't able to do. I don't think anybody would argue that maybe he's got the laser beam that Beck has, like the throwing power, but he's putting balls where they need to be, and he's gotten so much better. If you can remember our conversations, and I know it seems like an eternity ago, but remember our first couple games out when our conversations around Gunnar's like, man, like just we need you to trust that you can throw it, like trust what you're seeing. And we're 100% seeing that right now. That whip route to Noah for the touchdown was a great freaking ball. I mean, he was moving. He put it on the money. I mean, that throw 6 inches to the left gets batted down. 6 inches to the right, he maybe doesn't catch it. I mean, that ball was right where it needed to be. It was right on time with the right pace, everything. And then his little and I know this doesn't resonate, but the touch passes to the backside of the backfield, like the pacing on it is right. It gets to them with enough time to where they can cut it upfield and make a play, right? But it has enough touch on it to where they're not trying to catch a 90-mile-an-hour fastball 5 feet away. And we saw that a lot last year, and that led to some of those drops. He throws such a catchable ball. He's putting it in the right spots. And then also he's able to get going with his legs. And we saw some of those design runs. Look, Texas tried to run some of those design runs for Arch, and it just wasn't there. And we're not saying that Arch isn't a good athlete and the Arch can't run the football, but Gunnar runs the ball like a ball carrier. Like he has good vision. Like he sees it. He makes the right cuts. He makes the right times. And then also his ability and just the threat of him running, to your point, Harrison, opens up that little pop pass to the back of the end zone for the touchdown. I think Gunnar is not the right quarterback for every offense. Gunnar's maybe not the right quarterback for every team. But Gunnar's what this team needed. We didn't know that, but he's proving it to us every single week that he is what this team needed. They rally around him. They love him. And, I think Kirk Herbstreit said it best where he was talking about him taking that shot at the goal line, getting up and shaking it off last year against Texas. I think that really solidified to the rest of the team that, like, this guy's a dude. And it's very easy as a teammate to get behind a dude, like a guy that you could just like he's a gamer. Like, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to kill that guy to get him out of the lineup. I mean, you're going to have to snap him in half to where he physically cannot play for him not to play. I am growing to appreciate what he means to this team more and more, much in the same way we all grew with Stetson Bennett, right? At the very beginning of that run with Stetson Bennett, maybe we didn't have the appropriate appreciation for what he meant to this team. I think you could say that with Gunnar. I don't think all of us, and I'm not necessarily meaning us three, but as a collective, I don't think we appreciated what he brought to this team enough. But I think we're starting to see it now, and he's playing outstanding right now.
Well, and the growth he's shown has been incremental. Well, and sometimes it feels exponential. I mean, you go back and you watch early starts, some of those early checkdowns, or some of those early, like, hey, I'm going to tuck it and run just as something else is coming open. You don't see those as much anymore. Like, I posted on Twitter today, there was a run versus Alabama. He gets like 4 yards. He feels pressure. First read's not there. He feels pressure, and he kind of pulls his eyes down and he tucks it and he runs it. He gets like 3 yards. But if you go back and you watch the play, right as he's feeling pressure and steps up in the pocket to run, you have Oscar Delp on a deep over. You have London Humphreys into space on a dig, and it's not there. Then what does he do on, I believe it's the first drive of the game? He has that pressure in his face. He steps up in the pocket and throws it across the middle, puts the ball right on Zachariah Branch's chest, just enough where he slows down and gets some yak out of it. Like, that play, 2 clips, I just put it on Twitter hours ago, is Gunnar Stockton's growth over from September 27th to November 15th.
Yeah, and I think to bounce back on Dan's point for me for just a split second too, talking about teams rallying behind somebody and belief in from your coaching staff, belief in yourself, belief from your teammates. You go out, they kick a field goal, you score 2 touchdowns. Then you go punt, 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 interception, Texas touchdown. All of a sudden, you've been dominating this football game. It's been 14-3 and it's 14-10 and you have the ball back. Texas is all the momentum is Texas's way at this point. They're one touchdown away from leading this football game. What do? You drive the ball and you go 10 plays, 73 yards, touchdown to put yourself back up, 21-10. And then the coach, your head ball coach, takes the risk of all risk, right? It reminds me, this is gonna pull the rabbit out of the hat because I think Kirby was still on this team, the staff at the time. In 2015, in the national championship game, Alabama kicks an onside kick to open the second half against Clemson and recovers, goes down and scores, and doesn't trail again in that football game. Kirby goes surprise onside, recovers, eats up 11 minutes and 30 seconds of clock, and it never looks like a fight after that moment. I mean, you put it 28-10, put a fork in them. They were done.
Well, Texas offense had the ball. I checked this last night. They got the ball in the third quarter. They scored with 5 minutes and 31 seconds on the clock in the third quarter. They didn't touch that football till like 8 minutes left in the fourth. And like you said, Kobe, it was an 18-point game the next time they touched that football. It's crazy.
Well, and then you got Arch looking like a goober over there, just going nuts to start the fourth quarter. Like he's like, come on, bro. Like
he exits the field down 4. He gets back on it. He's down 18.
The fake juice is just kind of wild to me. But the one thing that I kind of caught my attention is the fact that he finished with 251 yards passing. It didn't feel like he had that many yards. Now, listen, in fairness to Arch, he didn't play as bad. I mean, he had bad moments, but he also had a lot of drops on balls that he threw pretty well. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a different game if you hold on to the football, but that's we all know too well that scenario.
We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. And then one of the things too is the Wisner had 37 yards on 9 carries, which is a 4.1 yard average, but they had to go away from it. I mean, early in the football game, they were running the ball with a little bit of success, and I even texted you two guys. I was like, you may have jinxed us with the not being able to run the ball, because that first drive they were moving the ball pretty well, but they just kind of got away from it. I mean, really, they did. And obviously the score dictated that, but even in the middle 30, they didn't really run the ball that much. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between other coaches and Kirby is you can stop our run on 10 straight runs, but he's going to run it an 11th time, and the 12th, and the 13th, and the 14th, and the 15th. Like, he doesn't give up on his run game, even when it's not clicking. I mean, very rarely have we seen them just abandon the run altogether, and when they do, it's usually because we're losing by a significant score, which doesn't necessarily happen all that often in Athens. But I'm impressed with their ability to really turn it back on in the fourth quarter. That was a big drive, like you talked about before the onside kick, and then just what have we been asking for all year long? Is Georgia to put their foot on somebody's throat and just extinguish them. And this is, in my opinion, and you guys may have a different opinion, but in my opinion, this is the first time that Georgia saw red and just put somebody to bed, just knocked them out and didn't give them a chance to breathe. This is the first time all season long where they just stomped somebody out. I mean, Ole Miss, we had to come back. Tennessee, we had to come back. So those are different scenarios, but they had the lead. They saw a chance to put somebody away, and they did it. And that's why I was so excited after the game, is because you did it, and you didn't just do it to somebody. You did it to a really good opponent. And I know that there are a lot of Georgia fans out there today saying Texas is horse crap. Dude, they're not. They're not a bad football team. We made them look bad in the fourth quarter, but they are not a bad football team. And I think you can put a lot of credit, or not a lot of credit, but you can put a lot of weight into that win. I think that's a really good win for Georgia.
Y'all boys were trolling over here about me taking them to cover 4.5. Hey.
Who?
Huh?
No, I was talking about y'all were trolling me because I had them covering 4.5.
The
Well, 'cause you're
Dogs?
dumb.
Oh, Texas?
Yeah, I had Texas cover
Yeah,
4.5.
that was stupid.
So,
Yeah.
hey,
I said
y'all ain't-
31-17. He said 34-17 or 35-17. We're on it.
I mean,
Our picks are on it.
I was
I'm glad
feeling
y'all on
hot.
something because
I was
y'all been
hot.
sucking on these other game picks. So
Man, listen,
y'all are due for one.
my brain thinks that all coaches think about playing football the way the head ball coach does, and they just don't. And so then I get lulled into this trap of like, Harrison, I think that I could give you a 30-3 halftime lead, and I think you could hold on. You know what I mean?
I
Like
hope so. You'd be the
I
greatest ever.
I just feel like you could hold on, but you can't. You could sometimes it don't roll that way, and it sucks. And when you're having to pick games based on stuff like that, sometimes you just swing and miss. Here's I just sent
Hey.
you something. If you'll flash it up real quick, it's going kind of like lead into what Dan was saying there for just a second. And I think this is crazy when Dan's texting us about, oh, you jinxed us because you said they can't run the ball. Booyah, Dan.
Booyah.
The 3 lowest yards per carry in a game in the Steve Sarkisian era. 1.1 yards per rush twice against Georgia, 1.3 against TCU, and then last night, 1.4 per rush.
Now that gets heavily jaded because the sack yardage counts as rushing yards.
It does, but if you take out the sacks, it's still not great. If you take out sacks, they're still averaging. Like,
if you take out the sacks,
you take out the sack. I'm looking at it now.
40
for
yards
stat broadcast.
40 yards on 12 carries.
Stat broadcast has sack adjusted rush yards 2.8 for Texas.
I mean, that's awful.
Georgia had 4. Had 4, averaging 4 yards.
And the other thing that I won't take out on the sack yards is they did try to run Arch on QB draws a time or two that he got tackled. So
TFL.
I'm with you, but they struggled. They could not run the ball efficiently, and it kills them, right? Like it just makes them have to take those chances downfield or on the screens to set up big plays, and there's a lot to be said when you can just hand that ball off and go get you 4 or 5.
And it's not a new problem for them. Like, I think a lot of the Texas fans are upset about, like, obviously their offensive line's been completely deficient this year. But even with your offensive line that had 4 NFL players on it last year, you couldn't run the ball in Georgia. So it's not only a talent issue, I think, for them this year, it's a mentality issue. Steve Sarkisian needs to look in the mirror and figure out what the identity of his football team is. Kirby Smart had identityless football going on offense last year. You didn't know what Georgia was going to be good at week to week. This year, they know what they're going to be good at week to week. They're going to run the damn football. And they harped on it all damn summer. I couldn't tell you how many times I heard, we're going to run the football, we're going to stop the run. All we heard. And they've done that for the most part this year. So it's crazy, boys. I have maybe a take here. Everyone points to the onside kick as where this game flipped. I have a different suggestion. I put this out on the other show. Gunnar Stockton's interception. That's where this game turned. Obviously, Texas gets 7 points. But if you go and look at how Gunnar played after that, he was 8 for 8 for 78 yards passing. He had 2 passing touchdowns and a 1 rushing touchdown. Guy was perfect.
Yeah, okay, I hear you, but also the quick turnaround on the onside kick
absolutely.
propelled him to that.
Absolutely.
No. I hear what you're saying. I disagree with you.
But look,
I think the turning point was outside kick.
No. Here, I'm going to stand on business right now.
You can't.
Last year, no, I can't. Shut up.
You have no business.
I'm going to mute him real quick if you don't shut up. Last year, he throws a pick in the red zone in the SEC championship. You know what they do, Dan? They take the ball out of his hands. This year, you know what they did? He throws a bad pick. They don't take the ball out of his hands. That's all the difference in the world. All the confidence in the world. That's the difference. How many young quarterbacks get the ball taken out of their hands in a
Ooh.
4-point game in the third quarter when he throws a pick? Kobe.
You want me to back up your take for the
No,
podcast, or
no,
you
no.
want me to
I'm
tell you?
asking. I'm asking
It's
because
completely different, right? Like you're talking about his first start against Notre Dame in a playoff game versus a guy that, I mean, after this game is going to be one of the top 4 Heisman finalists currently tracking.
should be.
Like, yeah, if this is game 3 against Alabama and he throws that pick, he's probably taking the ball out of his hands a little bit more. But he has earned the right. It's his team. The keys to the kingdom are his. King of the castle, king of the castle. We're going to win or lose with you. We're not going to go turtle shell. We're not going to quit taking chances just because you make a mistake. And listen, right? What have we talked about too all throughout the year? I think that's his 3rd interception. The second one he threw, we could debate your sister on it. Whatever, not his
What was that
fault.
one?
It like hit our guy in
yeah.
all the hands.
I remember that now.
But in order to make big plays, sometimes you have to take chances. Sometimes you have to put the ball in precarious situations. In that situation, it just happens that the receiver that he had the read on, the guy made a good play, right? They drop in the zone. He drops right in the throwing window. I mean, it hit him. It couldn't have hit him any prettier. It looked like a curl route. Boom. But it happens, right? Like you got to shake it off, and you can't go throw another one. I think that's the point that I really like that you're making, Harrison. Is like he didn't let that interception ruin the remainder of the game. He shook it off. He went perfect distributing the ball the rest of the game. He ran the ball. He was everything you could possibly want in a quarterback. I mean, 4 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown on the ground. He's the first Georgia quarterback to do that in SEC play since Aaron Murray.
Well, and remember, obviously, he got a touchdown off the onside kick. Yes, but before the onside kick, he had to drive 75 yards to go basically in a gotta have it, gotta score to get momentum back. And that was after the pick, too. So I don't know how many passes he had on that drive, but I'd imagine he had at least 2 or 3.
Pass, run, pass, run, sack, pass, penalty, run, pass. And the last pass was that 30-yard touchdown. So they kind of went 50-50 on that drive. So, yeah, but to your point is they let them throw it. But then after that onside kick went run, pass, run, touchdown pass. Oh,
He looked more like obviously the offense had stalled in the middle quarters there, and I don't know how much of that obviously it wasn't all his fault or he wasn't necessarily playing bad, but it was just that 75-yard drop, and it tracks with what they've said after the Florida game in terms of he's not going to play good. He may not play good for the start of the game or most of the game, but when it matters, he heats up.
hey,
And
so real quick, so
Mhm.
you made a comment about keeping Texas's team of it was 11-28. Arch went 11-28 of game time without touching the football, and if you extrapolate that to real time, that's about 35 to 40 minutes of real time.
Heck yeah. I think I had
that
a
was like,
Chick-fil-A
Gunnar had that
sandwich
done to him
between that time.
at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they double dip before half. You get the fumble. They take that in for a touchdown. Notre Dame gets the ball, come out of the gate. They return the kick. Like that. Goes from being a 3-point game to being a 10-point game in that game.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Listen.
Wait.
We've had,
Real quick.
oh, come on,
I got
Harry.
a question. I got a question. How many hours of tape did they spend looking at that onside kick situation? How many hours do you think? Well, I mean, what were the special teams meetings like, you think, leading up to that? KJ Bolden said after the game that he didn't believe they're actually going to run it.
Yeah, I think that must be I don't feel like, and this is just me personally as a specialist, it must be something that Kirby and them have noticed with the way that the kickoff has changed. Like the fact that so many kicks now are touchbacks. Some of those frontline guys, especially later in games, get lazy, right? They're tired, and you're running back to get to a point to come back and be that first wall defender, and block somebody just for it to end up being in a touchback. I would be interested to hear the head ball coach say if that was a Texas specific onside kick that they noticed, or if that's been in the jar for a while, and he's just been waiting on who was going to have to suffer.
Well, he said in his press conference that they've been practicing every week.
Yeah, so
which is crazy. First onside since 2013. I don't remember the last time Georgia attempted an onside before then.
And it was nasty. And like he said, you'd all hate me if it failed, but hey,
I don't care. And you know what? I believe that to his core. I don't think he gives a shit what we think about him.
Well, I mean, look, how many years did they all question about that? I mean, shoot, I even questioned the 4th and 11 fake punt. Sorry, Kobe. Bad memories.
That was dumb.
Prime example. Prime example right there.
You were in the room for that. You were in the room for that. Leading up to that.
All the time. Just no different than this, right? Like a year's worth of practicing a fake punt.
Yeah, the only difference is Kirby finally came around and was like, yeah, that might have been dumb. Like it was for like 5 years, it was like it was the right call. It was the right call. Finally, like after he gets a couple national titles, it's like, yeah, that might have been dumb.
Yeah, it would have been better if they had him as an up back, like set it up for a couple punts beforehand. Would have been as obvious, but still, everyone's
the fact that he was just trying to like sneak him on. I mean, he wore number 1. He's 6'3". You know, I mean, he just doesn't blend well. But we're into this thing, Harrison. We got to talk about the defense. We got to talk about their game. We're talking about a defense that has struggled to rush the passer all season.
I'm waiting to talk about Brett Thorson. But go ahead.
Pass. It's a team that racked up. We had 3 sacks, a couple tackles for loss. I think we ended up with like 4 or 5. It was a lot of havoc in open space this week. You know, what are y'all's thoughts? How you feel? I mean, DeMello Jones playing with what is effectively one arm had just some vicious tackles in open space. So, what are you kind of yeah? What are y'all kind of feeling? You know, in a game that we were talking about that you're going to have to tackle in open space. It's not easy. People just think that that's easy. It's not. It gets you beat.
I think my biggest, you're right. We tackled extremely well in open space. I'm not taking anything away from that. But I think this is by far the best the front 8 or the what's the word I'm looking for? The box players. The box players, this is by far the best that they have looked all season long. Defensive line, extremely productive. The edges, extremely productive. Linebackers, extremely productive. Freaking Chris Cole was all over the damn place. You know, when we had that change with CJ Allen goes out, Raylan Wilson goes to the middle linebacker, kind of disappears from the game, but not really. I mean, he was doing his job, right? But he wasn't flashing like he was earlier. And my wife is like, so she's trying to figure out what's going on in the game. I'm like, well, Chris Cole's going to be playing outside linebacker right here. I said, he's a hell of an athlete. Not even 2 seconds later, bro makes a hell of a play getting out to the perimeter to tackle on one of those screen plays to prevent that from popping because the wide receiver did a great job blocking the corner. I think it was Everett on that side. I'm not 100% sure. But Chris Cole out there like a bat out of hell makes that tackle. Just flashing all over the place. I know that was one of Harrison's favorite guys last year. He talked about him a lot. Raylan Wilson had another good game, and I text you guys at some point in the game. I said, is Raylan Wilson playing himself into a first-round pick? I think there's a really good chance that he is doing that. And then Justin Williams, a guy that we've been waiting on, made a couple of really nice tackles. I don't know what you guys are laughing about. But I was extremely impressed with the pressure that our defensive line was able to put up, and then also the ability for these linebackers to run. It was really, really, really nice to see.
You'll like that comment. Give out shout out to Miss Kylie.
Harrison
in
just
our
hates
private
to see
chat.
you. Harrison hates to see you be professional during a good.
I know.
You're trying to work in a good Dan rant. I could feel it brewing. You know what I mean? Like it
Hey,
was
we
coming,
got a
and then
Dan
Harrison
rant
just
tonight.
throws you. He throws you the curveball and breaks the whole
I'm
rant before it
sorry.
ever gets started.
No, trust me, it's gonna be worth it in the end because there's a Dan rant tonight, or at least Dan warned me about alter ego
Do we get to
returns
see?
tonight.
Do we get to see Bama Dan tonight?
He texted
Oh,
me. He
we
texted me
could
there
definitely
was.
probably see a Bama Dan tonight.
Okay.
We'll finish defense and maybe we'll get we'll open up the call line and get Ben Badana on here. I'm wondering how much of obviously Texas offensive line had to do with like, is this just a matchup thing for Georgia? Like, was this just a and obviously, even if it was, it's obviously nice to see because Georgia played Auburn earlier in the year, and Auburn was bottom of the SEC in terms of sacks allowed, and Georgia didn't really play a great game up front, in the front seven. You go play Texas, then you get pressure. You get your 3 sacks. You get guys flying around. Quintavious Johnson, obviously, 2 back-to-back big games for him. Him flying around that corner on the Arch Manning screen pass, good lord. Screens it to the tight end, and then CJ comes around, sees it the whole way, and just spears him. I don't know what it is, but the 3 times that these 2 teams have played, Georgia's defense has had their number, and it brings the best out of Georgia's entire unit.
It's so interesting to me that when I think about 2 of the premier, and I would even listen to a vote from you, but I would say that as far as head coaches that are premier offensive minds, Steve Sarkisian and um, Lane Kiffin probably in the top 3 to 4 head coaches that also were formerly offensive coordinators that maybe typically are regarded as elite play callers, right? Maybe you could sprinkle in like Lincoln Riley. I think he would be right up there with them. It's just always so interesting to me, at least at this point with this sample size, the difference in the way Lane coaches, calls plays, and is efficient, and the way Sarkisian has done the same, right? Like you're talking about, you went to Ole Miss last year and you got out physicaled. They rushed the passer, they made you uncomfortable, they ran the ball, and they prevented you from running the ball. You played in a dang old school shootout this year with them, and it was first not to score. Big 12 game out there. You've played Texas 3 times, and it has been you have suffocated their run. They've not been able to run the ball against you whatsoever, and you have limited the ability for them to have success passing the ball deep downfield. They're having to take everything you give them underneath and hope that they can break a couple tackles or have these long sustained drives. Versus Lane, he is the big play man, right? Like I know the game against him earlier this year is they had some long sustained drives, but um, I find that probably the most interesting is like whatever is different in what they put on film seems to make more sense to Kirby to stop Sarkeesian's style of offense than it does that run and gun spread that Lane's running. Um, and I think that's not good if you're Texas, right? Like that's not a good feeling.
Well, and I wonder like what Texas has to do because we saw Lane go into the offseason and that offseason and like talk about, hey, what do we have to do to beat Georgia? And he went out and did it. Invested in the offensive line, invested in the offensive line and defensive line, and that proved to be the difference. And obviously, there was a big feature piece about that offseason for them. What was Sark doing for the last 6 months? You lost to Georgia twice. You talked about, hey, you know what it takes to be elite. You know what it takes to beat the Georgias, beat the Alabamas, and you come back and you whiff on your evals and you're off the line. You whiff on your evals elsewhere, and you're not ready to beat them. You had a week off. You had a bye week, Dan. Yet on Thursday of game week, you're talking about how there's no continuity in this schedule. How it's unfair that a team gets to play a G5 school the week after they play you when you got a bye week.
I think one of the things that doesn't get paid attention to enough is I understand that Sark was with Saban for a little bit, but Sark cut his teeth on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And he comes from that Pac-10 mantra, that like their mentality where it's glitz, glamour, and high scoring, high flying offenses and all that stuff. Kirby cut his teeth in the SEC and the NFL, where it's mentality. It's you have to want, he said it in his press conference last night, because they kept asking about these mantras and stuff, and he finally got fed up enough to say, look, mantras don't win football games. It's just something we do sometimes. But the point of it was the Navy SEAL thought process where everybody's gung-ho and everybody's ready to go and everybody's doing really good until they take them to the water and they start the water torture. And his mantra for this week was make them ring the bell. Damn it, Harrison.
Unprofessional is what he is. He's unprofessional. That's how I feel. You're welcome. You're welcome,
You're
Dan.
talking about ringing the bell in the deep end
Yeah,
of the water.
His whole point is that at Georgia, week in and week out, they preach that you have to kill us. You have to make us quit, and that if you get into a fight, they're going to quit before you'll be willing to quit. And I think, you said, what has Sark been doing? Not that. The Jimmies and Joes, I think he has them. I do. I think he's got talent in Texas. I think he's got the Jimmies and Joes. He just doesn't have the mentality. And I don't think his players have that mentality. They got some guys on defense now. I will tell you, those guys didn't quit.
Played a lot more physical up front on the defensive line.
Yeah, Zero played really well. What's the linebacker who's was the number one linebacker in the country coming into the year? The NFL.
That's Zero. That's
Zero.
There's Zero, yeah. And Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons. That's the edge rusher.
Yeah, like those. Like I'm not. Please don't take it out of context and say that I'm trying to say Texas players quit. That's not the point. I'm talking about as an overall mindset. I don't believe they have it, and I think Kirby made a really, really emphatic point during his press conference that this, his group of kids believe in that, and they take a lot of pride in that. So, that's where, to answer your question, what has Sark been doing? Not that. And I think that's the biggest difference.
I think, like you're saying, I think the mantra and the different things, and when you think about that, the mentality that Kirby's preaching these kids, right? Like, it's a 60-minute football game. Like, it's not going to be 1 1/4. It's not going to be 1 1/2. It's not going to be one play. It's a 60-minute fight that they have to see us on this field for 60 minutes, and they've got to prove to us why they deserve to win. And if they can't do that, then we're not just going to lay down and let them win it. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing too about like ringing the bell to quit. Kirby been talking about we're a tough team to kill, and I think that's the difference, right? Like it's not that we have any quit in you. It's you're going to have to kill us in order to beat us, and unless you wear crimson and have a A on your helmet, there are not a lot of teams that kill you.
Solid point. The whole bit about taking them to the water, like I've been expecting that mantra, or like thinking we get a Navy SEAL mantra at some point in SEC Media Days, and didn't get an SEC Media Days. Got an actual post game. So, all right, last bit before we go. Got the 2 special teamers. Brett Thorson, not his best day. 31-yard punt average. Was it? Kirby denied that it had anything to do with the returner for Texas, but
he said it had
find
the
that
wind.
hard to believe. The wind.
So, having been a punter, I can tell you that if you are a punter who gets the ball high in the air, which Thorson does better than just about anybody, Not only can he kick for distance, but he's got extreme hang time. The wind can knock it down. And if that's what I mean, I wasn't there, so it's hard to watch TV and figure out if that's exactly what's happening. But Kirby said he just didn't hit it well, but he did mention that the wind was blowing extremely hard. So, if he kicked it high enough to catch that wind, and it's not, you don't have to kick it above the lights, but if you get it up there, that wind can knock it down for sure, 100%. But Kirby says he just didn't hit it well, and he'll be fine. And I'm of the second part of that. I agree with 100%. He's the best punter in the country. Numbers, I don't care. The only other punter that I would take, and that's because I know him personally, is Jacob Ulrich. So other than that, give me Brett Thorson all day long. And listen, if you're saying who the hell is Jacob, he's Oklahoma's punter right now, but that kid, I saw him in person for 4 years. That kid has got the strongest leg I've ever seen in person.
Is that the Kansas State transfer?
Yeah.
I remember you sending that guy.
Dude, I thought I was a really good punter. That guy makes me look stupid. I mean, he's so freaking good. But I still love Brett.
Give me Brett Thorson, give me Kobe Pierce as a long snapper, and we're riding.
I think I'm with Dan though. I mean, or with Kirby or whoever you want to be with. To me, the two bad punts look like mishits from where I was sitting. So, I mean, like the wind was a factor. I mean, it was blowing, but off the
I was thinking
foot,
maybe he was trying to go like directional, and it was just that was causing it. Like,
I'm gonna blow your mind with something.
well,
Every punt, every
directional.
punt is directional. They have a direction that he's trying to kick it every time. It's not just down the field. There's a landing zone that he's aiming for that we're aiming for. And so, like you're saying, if that landing zone was probably left on both of those, which it looked like it was, he just hit it. Didn't hit it the prettiest. And at that point in the wind, if it's not cutting up through the wind with a nice spiral, Dan can tell you, it's not going anywhere.
Nope.
If it looks like a duck, it's going to quack like a duck, and that wind's going to eat it up. And that's kind of what happened. And that's not on him. I mean, he's a phenomenal punter, right? Like some nights
I don't remember a game like that. Yeah, I mean that's
some nights you just hit a bad ball, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it is what it is. He had those two, and I thought his other three were fine. I mean,
hey, let me blow your mind even more. Even in high school, you have landing zones. The coach will tell you exactly where you want. Back in the early '90s, that was the thing.
We're gonna go find the VHS tapes of Dan's high school punting highlights. We're gonna watch on this show one day.
I actually have a couple. I got one where the guy was like, "Oh, it has been a show of the punters tonight."
That's awesome. All right. Well, we won't hit the panic button on Brett Thorson because your two native specialists says, "Hey, just a bad night." Kind of like Dan at the driving range. Sometimes you just ain't hitting that as far as he likes.
Hey, and let me tell you something else about Brett Thorson. His bad punts aren't even that bad. He didn't have an 8-yard shank. Okay, he had a 30-yard punt. And we're like, "Oh, the world is coming to an end."
I'll tell you what. After his last one, whatever his last one was before, or I felt bad for him. He walked over to that sideline, and Kirby was ripping him, just out beyond the hashes on the sideline. Kirby was having it. And at that point,
was it on right before halftime? Is that what you're talking about?
I think so. You're sitting there, and you're like, "Oh, fake punt, something's coming." Like Kirby's losing field position battle, and this is eating him alive.
No, he was pissed because we were trying to burn the last little bit of clock to not give Texas one more possession before the half. The punt was, basically right at the 20-yard line. Then the long snapper downed it prematurely before the refs blew it dead, so he stopped the clock early. Thorson and long snapper both got everything they wanted to hear for the night before they walked off field. It happens. Everybody gets it every once in a while.
I wish my man Kobe could overcome the Vietnam flashbacks and give us some hot mic moments.
I mean, it would get taken down almost immediately. Roddy would be unhappy to hear that I'm repeating things on this.
Hey, Dan's burner account, D-Mob, Notre Dame wants Georgia in playoffs again. D-Mob, were you one of the ones that were over here with us back in January after that game? We had some nice Notre Dame fans up in our live chat the game after that. If you were, appreciate you for sticking around. That would be a fun matchup. I don't know. I assume Georgia would be favored. Not sure. But yeah, shout out to the Irish. Anyways, let's wrap it up. Today's edition of the Top Level Talk podcast. I'm here, Sereno. That's Dan Kiley. That's Kobe Pierce. Another week. We don't have a ghost of anybody yet. Although, Kobe, you missed an opportunity. You should have
Liberty
been.
fired their head coach. You can put up his name. I don't know what his name is though.
I was going to suggest the ghost of the black sweatshirt from Kalen DeBoer.
Oh, that would have been a good one. I didn't think about that. I don't think about Alabama often, but when I do, they're typically beating us. So
Yeah. And
All right.
on that note,
Yep. I guess we're done. I was hoping Bama Dan would show up tonight, but he went missing.
it's
He
all
went
right.
missing on us.
He'll call Paul in the morning. I can't wait to watch Feinbaum tomorrow.